Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We've seen the elections as far as India is concerned. The kind of course, win that was expected. It's going to, as far as the third consecutive term is concerned, the victory itself has not been without challenges. We'll be talking about what the loss of majority can mean for India also, for Modi's India, as it's been for a while. It's pro-extremist policies, it's extremism that's been one of the agendas, Hindutva agenda that has been followed by the Modi-led India. What this means for them, is it a defeat for that kind of India? Are people clearly saying that that's not the kind of India that they want? The picture that has been painted, the facade that had been displayed for the world, has it been broken? Is the reality of India, the people of India, rejecting that kind of India that Modi is best known for? We'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about the ramifications of this as far as the region is concerned, and particularly, of course, as a hostile neighbor, what it can mean for Pakistan. All of that today on Perspective. I have with me today Wajih Abbasi, who's an IR expert. Thank you for being with us today. We also have Tayyaba Razaq, who's a public policy expert at NIPS. Thank you for being with us today. We also have with us Dr. Qamar Cheema, who is an IR expert. Thank you for being with us. Let's start off with Wajih Sahab. Overall, as far as the unexpected results of Modi's, one has to say this is not the majority that he was envisaging. What do you see it? What does it mean for overall electoral politics of India? Let's talk about that.
As you know, BJP and the Modi, Prime Minister Modi, has been aiming at what they used to, the slogan was, Ab ki baar 400 par. So they were aiming to get more than 400 seats in the 543 member Indian Parliament's lower house to get two-third majority to make overall changes in the Indian constitution, whatever they like. And the objective was that the BJP itself on its own will get something like 370 seats, and 30-40 seats will be won by their allies, and that will make 400 plus in the Lok Sabha. But as you see the turnout, even the exit polls which they portrayed just before the counting began, that said that the BJP and its allies, the National Democratic Alliance, is getting more than 400 seats.
First of all, is it a big surprise for Modi-led, the party itself and Modi himself, or do you think that it was in some ways expected?
I don't think that was expected. Generally, the Congress, this performance, it's something which was unexpected. They were not expected to get that number of seats. But there are reports that the BJP's internal, their own calculations and the calculations of the Indian intelligence agencies was that the BJP was not going to get more than 320 seats.
So in that sense, it seems to have been an upset, so to speak.
Yeah. Yes.
Let me come back to you. Before I go to Tayyaba, I'm going to go to Dr. Qamar. Dr. Qamar, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Qamar sir, this is, we've spoken about India from time to time with you, and we've spoken about overall the impact of Modi-led India on regional politics, what it can mean for Pakistan, the power of the Modi-led governance, so to speak. Is it a blow to them?
Well, to many standards, it could be a blow, but remember, somehow they have managed to have 240 seats. They are still the largest party in the country. That is one factor to see this. The second factor is that the minorities, particularly the religious minorities and the other scheduled castes or the scheduled tribes, and particularly to whom we call as the Dalits and others, they were very scared of that the constitutional protections can go away. So only they have lost in those pockets, particularly like Ayodhya or UP. Normally, last time in UP, which is a Hindi heartland of the BJP, and they have always been winning there. They won 62 seats last time. This time they are just winning 33 seats. So this means that there was a fear among the people, particularly the low caste and the minorities, that the constitutional protections can be removed, so they didn't vote. Otherwise, they have been winning in many places where there was no fear that the constitutional protections will be withdrawn. So it means somewhere the development factor has worked, and somewhere the religious card which they wanted to play didn't work. But largely, with the 246 seats around this,
I'm
BJP
going to
is.
interject. Qamar Saab, but in a sense, when we talk about, you said that, of course, for those people, for those minorities, where the fear was that the constitutional protections would go away, or the fear was that perhaps the policies, the kind of policies that Modi is best known for, would have a detrimental effect on, for example, the minorities, there he's been rejected. So one has to maybe, do you think that it's being optimism when we say that perhaps there's a rejection of that kind of politics by those segments where they feel that this is not going to help their India?
Well, you're absolutely right. I think the people of India, they rejected the hate. They do not vote for the hate. So all the politics of the hate, which was being propped up by the BJP and particularly Yogi Adityanath in India, in UP, the people rejected hate, and they believe that the Indian Constitution must be protected. They believe that this politics of hatred is not good for the Indians, and that's why the people in UP largely they have shown maturity. Overall, in India, it seems that the other political parties do not have that kind of a narrative.
Qamar Saab, on that note, when you say that the people of India in those areas have shown maturity, let me come back to you. We also have with us former Ambassador Naila Chohan. Ji, Naila, can you hear me? Naila?
Yes.
Ji, Naila, there is, we're talking about the Modi-led party, his politics. I mean, I'm focusing on the kind of politics that he's best known for, not just in India, but all over the world now. As far as this, what do you think it means for the allies, for example, and the future of politics for those allies? And it's going to be, it's going to be a now government which is going to be formed of, it's not a majority. So then allies, of course, are going to be a chunk of that governance. Isn't that true?
Yes, indeed it is. But you see, we have to first see who are we calling allies. If you talk about Quad, where India, USA, Japan, and Australia are members, that is one alliance. As far as India is concerned, you can see that after the murder of the Sikh leader in Canada and what the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had said in G20 meeting, that they had substantial evidence that India was using, its agencies for murders abroad. That itself had put the Five Eyes quite disappointed in Modi's policies in his country. And as Dr. Cheema said, the Muslim card they wanted to play failed because in Faizabad, where they had this Ram Mandir, Ayodhya, Modi lost. He didn't get any votes. I mean, he didn't get the winning votes. So
let me include Tayyaba in the discussion, Naila. I'm going to interrupt you. I'll come back to you. Ji, Tayyaba, if you've been following the discussion so far, do you think it's going to be, the allies particularly within India, when we talk about, for example, Rahul Gandhi, his party overall, do you think that perhaps this can pave a way forward for other political parties, and it in a way that perhaps earlier on, perhaps even 2 years ago, a year ago, it was perhaps rather impossible to imagine?
Yeah. Now, I would like to talk on numbers. Like in 2014, if we see the BJP took India with the majority of 282 seats. And then if we go towards 2019, we would see that it expanded the seats and it was nearly impossible for the opposition to take the seats. But now, if we see the results of 2024, we will be surprised that the Congress is also there. And now, if the BJP is going to make the policies, they will be definitely dependent on the NDA. And as far as the constitution part was concerned, that maybe the Modi, like it is the reflection of his authoritarian regime, that he is has shattered the fundamental principles of democracy and these things. So now the concern is that he would definitely pass the policies with the involvement and influence of the NDA. So I think this is a positive move as far as the allies are concerned.
Fair enough. Wajih Sahab, if we look at Punjab, for example, and Amritpal Singh, who has won, this is a surprising victory, for example, in Punjab, where he's a supporter of the Khalistan movement, and currently he's also imprisoned on terrorism charges, and he's won there. That also shows that, he's defeated Congress candidate there. That also shows that perhaps there is a progressive element overall. For if we look at these kind of wins, for example, independent candidate Abdul Rashid Sheikh defeated two major leaders, the former Chief Minister Umar Abdullah and People's Conference Chairperson Sajjad Ghani Lone by over 200,000 votes. So if we look at these kind of individual, seats, there seems to be a trend perhaps in India, a more progressive trend. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, so one thing, when there are two different, you have pointed out two different scenarios actually. As far as Kashmir is concerned, all the three Kashmir seats, the valley seats, Baramulla and Srinagar and this Islamabad and Rajbodi seat. On all those three seats, pro-India politicians were defeated heavily. In Jammu, of course, BJP has won, and in Ladakh, independent has won, but the Kashmir Valley has voted against pro-India politicians. That's one thing. Other thing is that in other parts of India, especially in the Hindi belt and in Bengal, and as the same goes for Punjab also, it is the minorities. It's the the minorities and the Dalits and the scheduled castes. They have voted in unison against the BJP candidates. You see in Bengal, the Muslim majority areas like Jamshedpur and others, and in UP the Muslims voted, and the Dalits and all that, they voted against the BJP candidates. The SP and the Congress party has won most of the seats in UP. That same goes in other areas also. So that is the minorities and the scheduled castes and all those people, they voted against the Hindutva politicians. But that doesn't,
You're saying that doesn't mean that there isn't a popular element within India that supports Modi. I mean, of course, one has to agree with that when we look at the numbers.
That's one important thing is that the BJP votes overall, though not in a major way, but slightly that their vote has decreased. So the Hindutva, which was progressive very aggressively, has probably stopped.
So you're saying that even in those areas, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to understand this, even in those areas where the majority has supported Modi, the overall percentage has increased. So there is a recognition, in that sense one can say, and I'm going to include Qamar Saab in this, that there is a recognition overall that perhaps his policies are not pro-humanitarian and perhaps may not bring India into the kind of future that people want for it. Isn't that true, Qamar Saab?
Well, remember, Narendra Modi and the BJP, they believe in a policy of a Hindu majoritarianism. So they have been following it and openly saying this. One thing. The second thing is, as you are talking about humanitarianism, the government of India is already giving, some aid or support to more than 800 million people. That is one of the reasons the Indian women voted for BJP. So, and although many may be calling it a bribe or the, this is a pre-poll rigging where you give some sort of wheat or anything to women so that they can vote. But in reality, there have been so many schemes for women. That's why they have been winning in many seats. And at the same time, this policy of Hindu majoritarianism and excluding others, minorities and Dalits, definitely created a problem for them. But overall, the way India's constitution, which is secular in nature, that is not being considered as a policy that secularism should be the way of politics in India. That's why one can see they have been in difficulty and they have been facing the fight.
Qamar Sahib, I understand when you say that they're not necessarily saying that let's move towards the kind of secularism that they advertise to the world, for example. But isn't it also perhaps a consciousness of the fact that perhaps those extremist policies are not necessarily the way forward, the kind of terrorism, the perpetration of it that we've seen, the interference of it when you talk about, for example, Canada, for example, America, even there is recognition that India is trying to extend itself in a manner that is uncalled for, and that is perhaps something that is recognized at the very least by the population in India.
Speaking, and to be honest, I believe that although there are 80% people in India, they are Hindus. So they have been trying to push the Hindu agenda. That is one thing, and obviously they were banned.
Okay, but Qamar Sahib, if we, I know that you have to leave early, so I mean, my last question to you, as far as looking at this in a manner, in a very open manner, in a very unilateral, clear, unbiased manner, what does this mean for the region particularly? Because when we look at, for example, the US election, or we look at other areas also, whoever wins, there is largely a broad-based foreign policy and a foreign policy agenda that is generally expected to be followed, and that's, let's be honest about that. With regard to India, one believes generally that Modi perhaps took a step forward, the kind of extremism, the kind of perpetration of terrorism against Pakistan in a manner that perhaps hadn't been done before. So do you think that a change there, not that we've seen that change yet, would mean a change in policy vis-a-vis Pakistan as far as India is concerned?
Well, I agree with you on this point that India has been perpetrating or harboring the terrorists in Afghanistan, and they have been financing the terrorists in Balochistan as well. So that is one thing very clear. But the question is, which is more important for us as a Pakistanis, that globally and worldwide, even our best of friends, they have not been listening to Pakistan on this. And for example, just recently when Foreign Minister was in China, there have been conversations on that. We have been convincing the Chinese to talk to the Afghan Taliban that stop those terrorists who are being funded by the Indians, or at least hand over those people. But somehow, I think the narrative is there. There are proofs. We have given the hardcore facts to the international community, but the world is not entertaining those hard facts. And I think we need to push more for this.
Thank you so much, Qamar Sahib. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for making time for us. Naila, there is, as far as Pakistani, again, following on what Dr. Qamar Cheema was saying, as far as our relationship with India is concerned, are there potential ramifications for the results of Indian election for Pakistan? Are things likely to change in any manner, even if very little?
Well, thank you so much for this question. But earlier on, the question you had asked, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that you were asking about the domestic National Democratic Alliance, which is opposition. So that's why I spoke of the international alliances that India is trying. But now ramification for Pakistan, I don't think there's going to change much. Modi is going to have a coalition government. He will not have all his way as he did before. But as far as the Hindutva agenda is concerned, it's unlikely that it's going to change. And that's what is the international criticism against Modi, that India is no longer the largest democracy. It is now becoming the largest authoritarian state in the world. So it will have negative repercussions for India, but as far as bilateral relations between Pakistan and India are concerned, I don't think Modi's side is going to change much, even if our government is more flexible on things.
Tayyaba, do you agree with what Dr. Naila is saying?
Definitely, and I think Modi is known for playing the religion card, and this time in the elections, I think constructing Ram Mandir on the ruins of Babri Masjid didn't work this time. So I think yes, and BJP's win is and its favorable position is because of the economic factor. Because when we see when in 2014 when Modi became the Prime Minister, India was the 10th largest economy, and now in 2024's winning elections, Modi says that he is going to make India as the 3rd largest economy. But we cannot, literally ignore the economic factors and internal factors of the state. If we look within, even at the Lok Sabha elections, people are changing priorities. For how long you are going to play the religion card? So, we have to address the grassroots level problems where farmers are not being paid, there is unemployment, social evils and horizontal inequalities are there. So, I think Modi, instead of focusing on isolating Pakistan somewhat in these situations or focusing on China factor, I think now is the time that Modi should focus on the internal factors and address those social evils.
Do you think, Wajih Sahab, that of course, Pakistan card, anti-Pakistan card was also used openly during Modi's speeches, if we look at his electioneering overall? Do you think that this also shows that, it's really going to matter more, like Tayyaba is saying, it's going to matter more domestically to the people there, whether, their economic, there is economic discontent, which is, recently, even though, one has to agree that India is one of the largest markets for the world as far as domestically it's concerned. There's been economic discontent, there's also rural unrest, like the farmer situation, there's also a host of local issues within India, and those are more important for the people of India than perhaps this extremism card that has been thrown by Modi, which seems to have backfired clearly. Then there's also this anti-Pakistan card, and of course we've seen anti-minorities and Muslims, particularly Dalits also, Christians also were targeted openly under his leadership. So there seems to have been a rejection of all that, no?
I don't think because BJP's vote bank hasn't decreased, so we can't say that it's the rejection of Hindutva policies, anti-Muslim policies, or other anti-Christians or anti-Dalits and those type of policies. But one thing, if you remember, in 1984 when BJP had 2 seats in the Lok Sabha, to 2019 when they had 302. There has been, their rise has constantly been on the issues of anti-Muslim or anti-Pakistan rhetoric. There has been this Ayodhya issue, Ram Mandir and Babri Mas, and those Gar Wapsi policies, the converting Muslims to Hinduism and that type of policies, and the Gau protection policies and that sort of things, that they have been using religion card against Muslims all the way. And that has been their main weapon of popularity in India. Tayyaba has been was talking about economic policies, but the architect of Indian economic rise is Manmohan Singh. Whether he was as finance minister in 1990s or prime minister in 2004 onward, it has been Manmohan Singh who has been making all the policies which created India as a economic power. After 2014, actually, Indian growth rate has decreased. It hasn't increased. It was highest when Manmohan Singh was the prime minister. So economically, BJP hasn't. Of course, India has become the 5th largest economy during the BJP's period, but that has been the progress of the Congress years. But one thing we must appreciate is that,
Ji.
you know, when Congress was in power in 2014, up to 2014, our relations with India were not very good either. So whether BJP
So it
wins or
doesn't really, in
loses,
your opinion, you're saying that, you know, the change in policy is not necessarily going to be dictated by a change in leadership.
no, I
which
don't.
is,
I don't
you
think
know,
so much.
let me go to Naila on this. Naila, then, you know, as far as the future of Pakistan and India relationship is concerned, again, if it's not going to be dictated by change of leadership, what is in your opinion going to influence our relationship with India? We've, over time, Pakistan has made overtures. We've also, you know, remain quite consistent on the fact that we want we would prefer, of course, a better relationship with a neighbor like India, but it can't be one-sided. And you expect, you know, what is that factor that's going to change the attitude that comes from India if it's not a change in leadership?
Well, there are 2 or 3 things that we have to bear in mind. Pakistan relations with India are basically stressed out due to Kashmir issues. Until Kashmir is peacefully resolved under the UN Security Council's resolutions, peace cannot come to the region. And if peace cannot come to the region, the relations between the 2 large countries of the region cannot improve. You can see the atrocities they're committing in Kashmir, the human rights violations they are doing, the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A, how they are, you know, now doing this yatra thing where they're sending Hindu, to do their pilgrimage, basically giving a symbolic message to the world that Kashmir is not for Muslims. Hindus also belong to that place. So they are changing their narrative on Kashmir very cleverly. Do you think with all these things going on, could you have good relations with India? I think the international community should condemn India. And it should be, reprimanded for the atrocities, just as we are doing for Israel. What atrocities they have committed in Gaza. What is happening in Kashmir, the Indians have a blackout. So the world doesn't see how every day children, women, men are dying, how they are disappearing, how there are, these widows that we have. So I think we have to be very realistic. Relations between India and Pakistan cannot be smoothened until the Kashmir issue is resolved. The second factor what you're talking about was perhaps trade. Now, in trade, you can see that Indians have been always very protectionist. They've always made non-tariff barriers and other barriers in trade which prevent a smooth flow of trade in South Asian region. You have SAFTA, which is South Asian Free Trade Agreement. Despite that, can you believe it, Mahrukh, that the trade in the region is only 5%? The inter-regional country trade is only 5%. So there are impediments that have to be resolved, and India is the major player in this thing, and they have to take their responsibility in bringing peace in the region and enhancing sustainable development, trade. You can see how they are doing water issues, how they are using climate change, abusing their neighbors by flooding our rivers when we are already inundated and imposing drought on us when the rivers are dry. So until there is sincerity,
we talk about, you yourself mentioned also, there is the double standards of the world. We have seen, and not that it's had the kind of reaction that of course any human being would like to see vis-a-vis Israel and Palestine, but there has been an out-and-out condemnation of Israel's actions as far as Kashmir is concerned. We haven't seen that kind of outcry emerge over India's actions. Of course, we've also seen a kind of blackouts, we've also seen media, blackout, we've also seen there's the kind of censorship clearly that's been imposed by India. in the absence of that kind of reaction by the world, we are left with very little options as far as, as a country. Of course, we can engage the world on different forums, but then of course there is the factor of Indian clout also, their market overall, that they tend to exploit. So what is the Kashmiris and the Pakistanis and overall, what do we do about this?
I think we should continue the way we are. We should not give up on this. Our permanent representative in United Nations is constantly briefing the UN Secretary General on the developments, and also at the UN General Assembly we are briefing them. We have to keep this campaign in Human Rights Council. We cannot give up. The international community, you can see, is also slightly changing because of the reports by Amnesty International, by Human Rights Watch. They have reported all these atrocities. And now with all these killings that they have done of the Sikhs in Canada, in USA, in UK, I don't think Modi can have his way as he was having before. I think there will be
something has to give, as that this can't continue. This kind of barbarity cannot continue. Thank you so much, Dr. Naila. Thank you for your very valuable time. Tayyaba, there is, you heard what Dr. Naila is saying. She's saying that there's no doubt about the kind of barbarity that's happening in Kashmir. We haven't seen the kind of reaction we would like from the world. But even in this kind of a scenario, when we say something's got to give, this can't continue, as far as the reaction of the world is concerned, where do you think, where will Pakistan garner the kind of support it needs?
I think first of all, India needs to revise these policies. These traditional policies are not going to work, and if India claims to follow the policy of neighborhood first, then I think we also share the borders with India. And if you are thinking to isolate Pakistan and not engage in trade, and yes, the Kashmir factor is there, but if we look towards the India-China relationship, we will see that yes, they do have the border issues, but still the trade and connectivity is there. So I think India should focus towards economic incentives and economic collaboration towards Pakistan as well, because this is very an old school perspective of just focusing on ideological parts and religion cards. So,
but overall, as far as Wajih Sahab, as far as we talk about the world, we talk about the fact that it's changing, we talk about the fact there is, of course, on the one hand, what's happening with Israel and Gaza, and there is the reality of that, and the reality of the fact that there's little change even though there is outcry. And on the other hand, we talk about how things are changing in the fact, and we try to find solace in the fact that perhaps there is a change because of the outcry. Perhaps the world is changing, perhaps the world is wanting to move towards a more fair world, which is going to speak for the underdog, which is the kind of, we've seen universities all over the world, we've seen students come out, we've seen people come out, as far as, and that has to mean pressure, whether it's the US government, whether it's, Europe, whether we talk about, we've seen the hosts of people come out in London, in Paris, in Washington. There is a reaction, and in that we try to find a hope. Do you think there's hope?
You're talking about Gaza and Israel, or
I'm
you're
saying
talking
that
about Kashmir?
I'm trying to, there's a parallel, right? That whether the world sees it or not, there is a parallel between the suffering of the people in Gaza and the people of the Kashmir and what they're going through. Perhaps, we can debate on the levels of it, but there's clearly, barbarity everywhere.
Yes, of course. There's a barbarity everywhere, but unfortunately, as far as international politics is concerned, there is no equality, and there is always pick and choose, and people are sometimes very sentimental, very reactive on issues in one part of the world, and they are not that much reactive on the other part of the world. and what we are seeing in Gaza and on Palestine, what is happening is unprecedented, and what is the reaction is of course sort of unprecedented. But we have seen, during the Vietnam War, there was a lot of demonstrations throughout the world against the United States at that time also. So there is a precedent on that. So people are reacting on the Gaza issue, but that has not been the same issue, same type of reaction in the Western world as far as on other issues, particularly in Kashmir. In Kashmir, unfortunately, I mean, even our co-religion, the Muslims in different part of the world, especially in the Middle East, other parts, they have not been that much reactive. Sometimes the governments, some governments in the Middle East, they have been appreciating the Pakistani policies or supporting Pakistani policies, but generally the other Muslim countries haven't been that much in that way supporting Pakistani policies or Pakistani point of view on Kashmir, as they have Pakistan has been supporting the other Muslim countries. So I mean, and India has, of course, in third world, India has a clout, and we should sort of accept that, and we should appreciate that and make our policies to counter that. If we just ignore that Indian clout in the
You're
Muslim
saying that
countries,
it's not about denial, it's about acceptance and moving forward and trying to make ourselves come up to that level where we can, and not to expect better of the world, essentially.
Yes, yeah, we can expect better when we are at a sort of balancing power.
Right, fair enough. Let me go to Tayyaba. Tayyaba, what do you think is the future of Congress in India itself?
I think now, if we see historically, Congress has now emerged once again, and I think this is going to work positively even for Pakistan, because now the Congress policies are more focused on towards a little bit of collaboration. So I think there is a hope. And when I talk about BJP, the BJP is definitely going to, this time in their tenure, going to get influenced by the other parties, the opposition parties in NDA. So you
think it's going to mean a change of policy?
Yeah, definitely, and definitely there will be a policy change. I'm hopeful for the policy change this time.
You're saying that because of the kind of reaction that's come up, in a sense they have to contend, but these are that people have rejected whatever the percentage of it, whatever the numbers may be, they still have a victory, but it's unexpected. Whatever, their loss, even where they have lost, is unexpected. So it's a revisit, a rethink will be necessary.
I think it's double-edged weapon.
Okay.
It's double-edged weapon because the BJP has lost. They have their seats have decreased. There's something like defeat for BJP. So BJP may increase the rhetoric which they have been using against Pakistan, against Muslims, to get more votes. They have made some inroads in the south. They have won some seats in Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, in Karnataka. So they have won in Kerala also. They didn't won in Tamil Nadu, but they have increased their votes in Tamil Nadu. So they can expect that they can increase, they can expand in the south. When they are losing in the north, they can expand in the south, and they can increase that rhetoric, anti-Muslim and anti-Pakistan rhetoric. That's one policy. But this BJP government will be weaker than the BJP governments, previous two BJP governments, because this time they are depending on this Janata Dal United and this Telugu Desam Party. So they will be dependent on them, and you never know, because as we have already seen that Nitish Kumar Sahib is demanding some ministries and some posts which BJP will not be able to give them. So there might be, we can, I fear that, I think there might be early election in India sometimes, because if these two allies.
You think that because they're probably it might mean instability.
Yes.
The kind of numbers that these elections have shown.
You remember in India had 3 elections between 1996 and 1999. They had 2 elections in 1988 and 89. So they can have many elections. So this time also,
there's a trend.
I
it might happen.
It might happen.
Envisaging
It might happen. Yes.
Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us, Wajih Abbasi Saab. Thank you for joining us, Tayyaba Razaq. Thank you for being with us, Naila Chohan. Thank you for being with us today, Dr. Qamar Cheema. Thank you for your time. Overall, of course, this election does show, in a sense, that the people of India don't necessarily support Modi-led policies of extremism, which means as anti-Christians, anti-Muslims, anti-Dalits, the kind of pro-extremism policies that have ensued under Modi-led India. It seems to have been a rejection of that at the very least, and the numbers of course do show that the kind of alliances coming forth don't necessarily mean perhaps stability for India. Of course, we'll know as governance and government making and we move towards that, what kind of a shape it will take. One hopes perhaps for a more human and less barbaric kind of narrative from India though, and we won't know whether that hope is unfounded for a little while yet. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.